Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my little corner of the interwebs. For today's video, I am trying the one, the only Ensley Rain Cosmetics. Yes, I know, if you've been here for longer than a month, you know that I talk a lot of smack about this brand, quite frankly, because it's expensive. It's not cheap at all. But, surprise, surprise, they released the brand new Groovy Garden palette, and it was priced at $69. And I say that like, yay, because the prices of the palettes that they have released in the past have been over $70, over $80, and that was just something that I could not get behind. But with this being $69, I compared it to the price of an Adept Cosmetics palette, which to me felt worth it, considering that I've paid this price for Adept, and this technically has more shades. So this is a 21 pan eyeshadow palette. So for today's video, I'm going to do what I typically do for you guys, give you guys some product details, dive into 3 looks with the palette, and then I'll end it off with just some overarching thoughts. Now, I tried to be very analytical and unbiased in this first impressions, you guys, because I know going into this that I had very low-ish. Like, I know I did not have high expectations, and I know that I had a bad taste in my mouth from the brand just because of how expensive it was, and I didn't want to bring that into the review, so I tried to be as unbiased as possible. But I just wanted to let y'all know that I wasn't feeling it jumping into this to begin with. But I love the color story of the palette, and I was curious enough that I was like, well, let's see if this is really worth it. So I tried to give you guys all of that at the end, so please like watch the video through. All right, so let me just give you a little bit of product details before we dive into this, because I feel like this is going to be a long one. So on the website, they describe this as an ode to the free spirit vibes of the late 60s and early 70s era with a modern twist. The 21 color palette features 14 velvet mattes, 5 sparkly multichromes, 1 far out hollow chrome shade, and 2 shimmering duochromes. Whether it's the muted earthy tones for a laid back vibe or the vibrant pops of color that bring out your inner moonchild, you've got the freedom to create looks that are both far out and wearable. The magnetic base and removable pans invite your inner free spirit to have some fun, rearrange your colors to match your vibes, and escape into a world of beauty. It also says that this is vegan and cruelty free. Now on the sleeve of the palette, it does say that it has a 12-month shelf life, but interesting enough, it does not say where this is made. All it says that this is distributed by the Heart Mart Company, Grants Pass, Oregon. So, I mean, can you do that? Can you not say where it's made on packaging? If I'm recalling correctly, the brand did say in a post that their shadows are handmade, hand-pressed, one of the two. I don't know if that's like in a lab or like, I don't know. And it also doesn't say in the packaging where these products are made. So that is, I think, quite curious. And I might just reach out to the brand to find out, because there's nothing on the sleeve. There's nothing on the sleeve of the palette other than the ingredients and the shelf life and where it's distributed from. And the palette has even less information. And the box that it comes in has nothing. So I am genuinely curious as to where this is made. All right. Now, that's it for the product details. Let me go ahead and scooch to the side. Not scooch to the side. Let me go ahead and dive into the 3 looks, demoing the palette on my skin, and then we will come back at the end for some final first impressions thoughts. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the first look. This is the palette Sans the shade that arrived broken. Y'all already know, I'm going into the orange. That's literally the whole reason I bought this palette. So let me bring y'all in a little bit closer, and let's get started. So my goal is to keep this relatively simple because I am going out. I'm having a girls' night out with a couple of my college friends, so we need to keep it kind of simple. So the first thing that I want to do is to go into this light shade. It's called Mystic Mauve. And I'm going to plop that into the crease as my transition shade. I typically don't like trying new palettes for the first time when I have places to go. But thankfully, we're just going to one of our friends' house, so we will be inside, and if I look a hot mess, you know, they'll tell me, we'll laugh, and we'll move on. But, yeah, if I'm going outside, I try to not try new palettes for the first time, because, especially if it's a brand that I've never tried before, because Lord alone knows, It's the worst thing to have your makeup go haywire when you have your tried and true. So far though, this matte is soft, it's blending. I am quite pleased. This is a good sign. You guys know how I feel about mattes. Mattes are like the beginning for me. Okay, this is so pretty. And that was the shade Mystic Mauve. Okay. Next up, I'm torn between Foxy and this shade right here. This one is a little bit deep. This one is a bit on the peachy side. Let's try Foxy. So taking that same brush, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of Foxy and I'm gonna put that right underneath. Just creating a little bit of depth. You know, we're starting to move down. We're starting to deepen things up. Ooh, pretty. The pigment on this is quite impressive. Okay, I didn't want to do too much, but I'm just curious now. So I'm going to actually go into that earthy shade. And I'm going to start plopping a little bit of that into the outer corner. Because one thing I am curious about is that these are very, very nice sort of natural, earthy, neutral tones. I'm trying to figure out the differences in terms of the shade. Like, did we need all of these? Could we have had less? I'm seeing the difference though, so I kind of appreciate the nuance. You know, part of me does not want to fall in love with the formula because this is such an expensive brand, such an expensive indie brand, that I don't want to fall in love and then be like, damn, I want to add this to my repertoire, but the price be pricing. Y'all know how I feel about these prices now. You've got me in over my head. And this is a beautiful spicy neutral palette in my mind, so... And I know on camera this is coming off as super simple, nice and soft, but that's exactly what I'm going for. So I am very happy so far. Okay, and then I'm gonna go into Babe. And I'm gonna use that as my outer corner shade. So Babe is like the second deepest shade in terms of like matte brown. So this one is a little bit of a reddish brown, which I think is gonna go really nicely with that fiery shade. So plopping that into the corner, blending it up and across. I don't know why, but I'm feeling a little bit of smoke and punchiness today. These mattes layer so nicely. And in all fairness, a lot of y'all told me that Ensley Rain is some good shadows. Y'all were like, it's expensive, but it's good. And I was like, we'll see. We will see. And now I am terrified that I will fall in love. I mean, but at the end of the day, I'm in love with a lot of things, and I can't afford all of them. Like, I would love me a little boat to live on a beach, little beach house, but can I afford that? No. So it's okay to love things and just have it not be in your budget or in your price range at the point in time. So I have to keep telling myself that. Anyways, these mattes are layering, building, and blending. So lovely. I'm obsessed. Can't sleep at night. So cold, baby. You say you love me, then you hate me. Okay, so that's where we are. For the star of the show, this fiery red orange shade. This is called Lava Lamp, and I haven't swatched any of the shimmers, so you know, part of me is like, ooh, should I combine that with something else? But then I'm like, girl, just do one. Okay, Jesus. Okay, this is all we're putting on the lid because this shade deserves its own moment. And I'm going in with my finger. Formula-wise, it is not too creamy. Like, it's slick, but it's not creamy to the point where it's like, oh, this is gonna slide all over my face and crease. Damn, guys. I didn't want to love this. Can't afford this brand. Oh, I did not want to like this as much as I do. Okay, let me go ahead, You see the vision. This is the whole look here, you guys. This right here. Let me go ahead, clean this up, finalize everything. There's a little bit of cross-contamination, and that's honestly from the shade that broke, so just let it go. Like, you can probably see little specks of what not supposed to be in there. It's okay, it's fine. And look, I still have so much on my finger. Like, yeah, you see that little cross-contaminated piece there? It's fine. I'm not too bothered by that. There's one speck in there, but okay, let me go finish it up. I'll come back to you guys the final look. Okay, so this is the final face. Y'all, I really don't want to like this palette because y'all know I don't like the price. But anyways, I have to get out of here because I am going to a, did I say this? We're having a girls' night, me and my college friends. So I just want to flag that, you know, there is a little something extra going on because I was like, I could keep it like that or I could add a little something else. So what I did was I went in with this shade, which is called Jazzed. So Jazzed is kind of an orangey leaning shade. So I just took that and I used that to line the top of this look, giving it that extra oomph. So I think it really amped it up a little bit and gave it a little bit of extra somethingness. And I used that same Jazz shade at the bottom. So I don't know why it turned so green. Maybe because of the dark shade, which is the same outer corner shade that I use here. I put that in here and then I put Jazzed on top of it, so it looks a little bit greener here than it does over the orange. And that's the thing about shades, is when you blend them together, when you put them over different shades, it can look a little bit different. But I'm not mad at the green because orange and green looks really good together. So this is the look. Of course, we're gonna do another one, maybe two, and then I'll come back and give you guys my overarching final thoughts. But I gotta get out of here because I have a 2-hour drive, and yeah, so okay, so let's go ahead and get started with look number 2. I think I want to play with these greens here. Not really sure how yet, but first things first, I'm going to go into this shade. It's called Sage Serenity, and that's going to be the transition shade for today. So we're just going to pop that into the crease. Really nice pigment. And I will say that just looking at this palette, there are really only 2 light shades that might be either useless or blend out shades for me, but for the most part, I can use all of the mattes in this, which is great, especially considering the price point of this palette. I need to be able to use every single shade, you guys, all of them. This is applying really nice, very buttery. I'm trying to think of what this reminds me of. I feel like it reminds me a little bit of the Shroud Cosmetics mattes, which I feel like Shroud is like he who must not be named, because what in the what, you know? And if you haven't seen their back, they are alive and well apparently, and people are getting their orders 3 months later, y'all. I don't understand how. Like, how do you disappear for 3 months and then come back? Like, sorry about that, you guys. So let's go into this shade Peace, and we're gonna plop that into the crease underneath that first shade, kind of getting into that outer V area. Like, seriously, how do you just disappear for 3 months and then come back and then just basically say, sorry about that, and then just go about your business? Like, no explanation, none at all. Are we owed one? I would argue yes, but you know, I'ma just sit here and mind my business. But you know, I will say that I think that they are on like a permanent no-buy list for me, because that was messed up. I don't like how it was handled. I don't think it was handled. Anyways, that's not what we're here for. We are here for this groovy garden goodness, and geez Louise, this is so pretty. And the reason why I'm so excited about this palette, you guys, is that these mattes blend quickly. Like, And you guys know I love a good blend, but this is actually like making my job so much easier, how quickly this blends. Okay, and lastly we're gonna go into Dig It, which is the deepest shade. It's a really deep brown. It looks like a straight up like a true brown. So oh, that is so pretty. Like the shade that I used with the previous look was definitely more maroon. It gave a little fiery, which was perfect for that look. I have so much thoughts, you guys. So much thoughts on this palette and this brand. Make sure you know, stay to the end because I've been like really like thinking about this since I applied that first look, which was what, 2 days ago. And I have to like make notes because I have so much thoughts. Okay, so I really want to play in these two shades. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So starting off with, which one? This one? It's called Vintage Vibes. So this shade is called Vintage Vibes. Actually, let me swatch both of these first and then we'll see. Oh. Yeah, so we have Vintage Vibes and then we have Trippy. Okay. Yep, I'm gonna take Vintage Vibes first. And I'm just gonna plop that into the center of the lid here. Now that you're gone, I'm slowly getting used to reciprocity. And then I'm gonna take the Trippy shade, which is the one next to it, and I'm going to put that into the inner part of the lid. You know, next to each other, they don't look that different. Very interesting. Even in person, like I wish I could say that it was just like on camera it doesn't look that different, but in person they kind of blend into each other very well. Okay, so you guys see the vision. This is what we're going for. I'm gonna go ahead, clean this look up, come back and show you guys the final look. And then I think I want to do one more look. I'm better without you. I hate lies and I love truth, so I hate it and love. My common sense is caught up with my confidence, but my wicked heart still battles my intelligence. Okay, this is look number 2. I definitely do want to go back in and do one final look, but I had to show you guys this one. And I will say, those two shades look like the exact same shade on the eye. You can't tell me they look like two very distinct separate shades. If you think they look the exact same, put it down in the comments because I want to know, like, is there any differentiation? Because when you have a palette that is this pricey, the shades need to be distinct, you know? So just let me know your thoughts in terms of like, are they too similar on the eyes, or are you able to very clearly see the differences? Okay, let's dive into one final look. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the third and final look using the Groovy Garden palette from, what are they called? Ensley Rain. Jesus, it is too damn early. Okay, so let's start by going in with Free Love as the transition shade today. I think we're gonna do something that's a little bit mauvey, a little bit on the purple side. Honestly, it's been several days since I've used this palette last, so I can't remember what I've been using in terms of like shades. Like I remember the feeling of using this palette essentially, but specific shade names I can't really tell. And I am super gentle with my palettes, you guys. So when it comes to like looking used, some of them just look like they're in pristine condition, but I feel like I didn't touch this shade and oh my god, it's so pretty. Next up, I'm gonna go into the shade Mauve. Again, we're sticking kind of mauve today. Mauve. Picking up, ooh, that picked up really nicely. And that's just gonna go directly underneath that first shade to add a little bit of depth. Oh, that's pretty. And you can see the difference. It's a nice shade to build on. Now cleaning off that brush, we're going to go into Hazy Dreams and probably a little bit of Babe. I can't tell which one is used. I feel like I went into one of these. Ay. So picking up a little bit of Hazy Dreams. And we're just going to start by stamping that into the outer part of the eye here. And we're going to blend in, you know the drill. This blends so well. And so quickly. Like, a good matte shadow that doesn't take forever and a day to blend. Even though I enjoy blending, you guys. Like, I could sit here and blend from now until like Kingdom Come, like I've said before. When you find a good matte shadow that just blends with ease, there's just something. Just something. Okay, this is what we're looking like. And I'm tempted to stop here. But I'm also like, should I add a little bit of Babe, into this eye look to give it just a smidge more depth? No, let's try. So, we went in with Hazy Dreams. You know, already tailed pretty deep. We're just going to take a little bit of Babe. And I'm going to plop that into the outermost part of the eye. Just to get just a touch more grunge. So this is with Babe added, no Babe. Let's just even things out, shall we? Okay, and then I'm going to take my first brush and I'm just going to brush over the top. Just to soften up that blend a little bit. Now for this look, I want to try one of the chunky shimmers. You'll probably see just by looking at it that there are a couple different textures when it comes to these shimmers. Like this one is extremely smooth. This one has very huge chunk particles, even this one. So because of the different textures in here, I really only stuck to the smooth in the first two looks. So I want to dive in with something that has a little bit more chunk to it. So I'm actually going to go into this shade. It's called Free Spirit, and this is actually the shade that showed up broken, you guys. Okay, that is quite creamy and quite soft, which explain why it broke. Okay, don't panic. So just from that one little dip, I have more than enough product to cover both eyes. That's really funny. So I'm just gonna layer that onto the center of the eye, spreading that around with my finger. For these very chunky shimmers, I like going in with my finger because I feel like it gives me the chance to really press it into the lid, which I prefer a little bit of a smoother look so that it doesn't kind of like emphasize creases or lines. I don't really have texture on the lid, but I just don't want to emphasize anything. I don't want it to be too much in general. Granted, I don't know if you can tone this down really, but you guys get what I'm saying. So I'm just, really pressing those shimmer particles into the lid, which I think helps give it a smoother appearance, even though it's not quite a smooth shade. But what I am going to do is go one over into this shade right here, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that and put that into the inner part of the eye, and that shade is called Moonchild. So God, there's so much going on with this lid. I don't know why I thought this was more pink. It's kind of showing up green. Okay, just go with me. Thank God I don't have a ton of meetings today because the eyes are giving rainbow madness. Purple, blue, green, like pink, mauve. I like mauve. I don't like saying mauve. Do you guys say mauve or mauve? Okay, so you guys see the vision. This was not what I thought I was going to do today, but here we are. So I'm going to go ahead, clean up this eye look. Then I'll come back and give you guys just sort of my overarching thoughts on Ensley Rain and the Groovy Garden eyeshadow palette. All right, see y'all in a bit. Okay, so this is the final look. I have my hair in some little twisties today, just a little protective style going on, and the shrinkage, y'all, the shrinkage is real. Like, look at this, look at, dude. Okay, I'm done. But you guys are here to hear my thoughts on the Ensley Groovu Garden palette. Now, like I said in my intro, I was very hesitant to buy this because I have been kind of wary of the brand from the beginning because of its price point. But this was actually a color story that really called to me, and the price was, I don't want to say significantly cheaper, but quite cheaper than their original palettes. This was only $69, and I'm saying only, so take that with a grain of salt, but it was $69 compared to some of their other palettes, which retail for like $80+. So at the $69 price point, it is, in my opinion, aligned with other brands that I do support, like Adept Cosmetics. So it was a little bit easier for me to swallow, plus I was able to use an affiliate code, get an additional 10% off, which made me more comfortable with the price point. Now, for my first impressions thoughts, I was thinking about how I wanted to do this because I already knew that I was coming into this with a little bit of a bias. Again, I've been feeling a little uneasy about the brand, so I did not want to bring that into this sort of review, first impressions thoughts generally. So I decided to break it down into 3 P's: price, packaging, and performance. And I really want to keep it very analytical, very to the point. And at the end, I'll give you all my opinions. It might be sprinkled in through there a little bit anyway, but you know, I just want to like give you guys the raw details on it so that you can make an informed decision for yourself if this is a brand that you want to get into. Okay, so packaging. Now, let's start with the outer packaging. First, it did come very securely packaged in this Groovu Garden box. It was a box within a box. So it does have, in my opinion, the very standard Adept Cosmetics packaging, which I'm realizing a lot of brands are taking on because Unearthly Cosmetics has also done this. So it comes in this box. This is the sleeve for the palette, so forget this. It's stuck in here, very securely packaging. It has padding all around it. And then this box is put into a larger box, which is then shipped out. So it's a lot of cardboard. If you are somebody that, you know, cares about the environment and that bothers you, I don't know what to tell you. A lot of brands are doing that. I don't mind it. I appreciate the fact that it was very securely packaged. And for me, even though it was securely packaged, I did get one shade that arrived broken. And having used that shade in today's look, I understand why it broke because it's very, very soft. But outer packaging, completely fine. Not mad at it. The packaging of the palette itself, it's basic, you guys. This is a cardboard palette with a magnetic base. So in terms of the actual artwork and the packaging, you guys know that Ensley does use AI generated art. So there's nothing that feels particularly special or significant about the packaging because it is just AI generated art. Is it pretty? Yeah, sure, I guess. I am not really into this type of packaging just generally, to be quite frank. I'm somebody that prefers a sleeker design. So something like the Adept Cosmetics palette where it's just that faux leather, I'm completely fine with. Like minimal packaging in terms of like print and artwork is what gets me because in my opinion, those feel a little bit more timeless. This I think is something that after a year or so is going to look a little dated. And because of that, it's not necessarily my favorite packaging. Am I like overly concerned about it though? Not really. So you have the packaging that goes front, back, etc. But going back to how this is constructed, this is cardboard. This is cardboard. It does have a magnetic base, so you can pop all of these shadows out, rearrange them if you so choose. I believe, and I have heard that that is one of the reasons why that sends up the prices of eyeshadow palettes. Personally, I don't care for a magnetic base because I'm not necessarily one that rearranges their palettes. But if you are somebody that does BYOPs and this is important to you, then okay, fine. But for me, if it would have made this palette cheaper, I would have preferred if they had just made it completely cardboard throughout. Very basic, not needing the magnetic base. Just saying. The other thing that I want to point out is that there is no mirror in this palette. This palette retails for $69 and there's no mirror. So again, sticking with the packaging piece here, the fact that we don't get a mirror is something that I think is a little bit unacceptable at this price point. Now granted, 99.9% of the time I'm doing my makeup at home, I have a mirror in front of me, but that 1%, if I were to travel with this, I wouldn't have a mirror. That's just kind of like weird for me. So I really do wish that this came with a mirror for the price point. Now, if getting a mirror means that the price of the palette goes up, keep the mirror. But I'm just saying that at that price point, I think it should already come with a mirror. And I'm gonna leave that there. Okay, now let's get into price because I already kind of started talking about it. Like I said, this palette retails for $69, which in my opinion is pricey. Just off the bat, it's a pricey palette. But being very, very analytical and transparent here, the math is mathing. The palette has 21 shades, 14 of which are matte, and then the 7 remaining shimmers are all special shades, meaning that they're all some kind of multi-chrome, dual-chrome, shifty shade. Now, if you were to just break this down mathematically, $69 for 21 shades, that works out to about $3 and I think it was like 30 cents per shade. Now, obviously, it does cost a lot less to make matte shades than it does to make shimmer shades. So that is giving you a rough estimate per shade if all the shades were equal, but we know that they weren't. But from a just sort of mathematical perspective, it's good value. Like, I can't even argue that. Considering that there are brands that charge anywhere from $12 to like $25 for a single multi-chrome shade, this is actually an excellent value for your money. Now, there are palettes that they have that cost a little bit more, like $88, like I said. I am not going to do the math on those, but those do typically have more multi-chromes. Honestly, I think that they intentionally chose to include less multi-chrome / special shades to bring the price point on this down, which I thought was an excellent decision. Personally, I prefer a more matte heavy palette anyway, because mattes are what ground the look. But I do also want to admit that they could have made this even cheaper by taking out some of these shades. Now, I do think that there are shades here that are somewhat redundant. Now, when I talk about performance, I'll get into like the quality of the shades or whatever, but I do think that they could have eliminated some of these shades here, making this one smaller and cheaper for the consumer. In terms of the weight of this, and getting back to the price again, you do get 23 grams of product. Again, I do think that for the price, it is fair comparing it to other things on the market. That being said, just because it is fair doesn't mean that I'm very comfortable with it, because I do think that that brands putting out large palettes that are super expensive isn't necessarily the right direction. But again, it's not my brand. I think it would have been better to have like a slightly smaller palette, slightly cheaper palette that people could get behind. Okay, now let's get into performance, because honestly, this is probably the most important thing. Like, is this actually going to perform? How does this work? So I really like the performance of this palette, guys. There's nothing bad I can say about the quality of these shadows. They are superb. They are absolutely phenomenal. They don't feel like standard stereotypical private label mattes. And as far as I know, the brand has said that they have their own formula, and these are hand pressed or something to that effect. Now, I don't think that these are handmade by any means at all. But let's talk about how they actually perform. And by perform, I mean like the pigment, the blendability, the longevity, all of that. So let's start with the mattes. You guys know how I feel about a good matte eyeshadow. If the palette doesn't have good mattes, it typically means that I'm not going to like the palette. Like, I can tell if I like a palette or a brand or a formula just based on the mattes. And these mattes are perfection. I was completely blown away. And I've seen good mattes before. And at this point, a lot of brands have good mattes. But these are great mattes. One, they blend really well, they build really well, and they blend quickly. That was something that I noticed from the palette off jump, is that the mattes blended really quickly. And I was able to create looks faster, which is something that I've been, becoming to appreciate. Because while I do love doing makeup, I don't want to sit here blending like all day. And if I do have a palette that can blend really quickly, excellent. And interesting enough, even though I just said that there are a number of redundant shades in this palette, I will say that when you put these shades on the eye, even the ones that are slightly similar to each other, they do show up very distinctly different on the eyes. Like, you can see the difference. Is the difference enough to warrant having both shades in here? I don't think so, but that's just like a me thing. I think that there are a number of shades here that could have been removed and we would have been fine. We would not have noticed anything. But I have to admit that the shades that were chosen are very distinctly different from each other, and they don't just blend into the same shade, which I thought was quite interesting, because in a lot of ways they do look very, very similar, but then you put them on the eyes and you're like, oh, these are actually quite different. Not quite different, but they are actually different, and you can tell the difference. But what I always like to say is that even though you can tell the difference, nobody's going to be that close to your eyeballs, or should not be that close to your face to see all of that. You know what I mean? So just something to keep in mind. Let's talk about the shimmers. The shimmers, oh my god, they were stunning. You guys know I bought this palette just for that one shade, right? Lava Lamp. Lava Lamp is everything. I love a good orange. I love a good fiery red. That is what I need in my life at all times. There are two distinct formulas, in my opinion, in this palette. There's the smooth formula, which I think we saw in like these shades here. And then we have like 3 shades that have a chunkier texture. The smooth shimmer formula, or the smooth multi-chrome formula, is what I liked in this palette. The chunkier ones, yeah, they're nice, but honestly, those are the shades that felt the most reminiscent of like the stereotypical private label formula. One of the chunky shimmers were like very thick, and in order to get them to not look super textured on the lids, you have to like really use your fingers and press them into the lid. Because when I was cleaning up this look and I was going in with a brush, I realized that the brush would not lay down the shimmers and spread them out, so it had very, very chunky particles, and I kind of had to like tap it in to get something that's a little bit smoother. I don't want chunky glitter particles on my lids. It's not my ministry. It's not my journey. So I wasn't a fan of the thicker, chunkier shimmer formula. I will also say that that formula felt significantly more creamy, or creamier, I should say, than the other smoother shimmers, which is not a problem for me because I don't have any issues with creasing or oily lids. But I can see how somebody that does have oily lids or does have issues with creasing cannot like how those shades will perform. So something to keep in mind. Again, it's just these chunkier shimmers that I think are going to be a little bit problematic. But the smooth shimmers performed so well. It was just absolutely beautiful. So in terms of the shimmer formula, I like one, don't really like the next. But it's nothing that I'm really holding the brand against the brand. In terms of the shiftiness of the shimmers, I thought that they were nice. It wasn't crazy shifty, but you get a really nice shifty shade. Like, this look is a little bit much, I will admit that. But you can see all of the shifts, all of the glimmery pieces to this. And then overall, last, I want to talk about longevity. These shades last. I have worn this palette a couple of times now. It's been about 2 weeks since I've been playing with this. And I will say that every time I put this on my eyes, and like 10 hours later, it looks exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. And that, I think, is quality. Like, there are a lot of shadows that do fade over time. And overall, I don't necessarily mind it. I just think it's just like life. And when you're wearing something for that long, you do expect a little bit of it to change. But the fact that those shadows looked exactly the same from start to finish, y'all, Lord sweet baby Jesus, I was floored. I was ecstatic. I was so happy that they lasted so well. Okay, so we've talked about the price, the packaging, and the performance. And I tried to be just like very straight up here, the facts from my perspective for you guys. Now let me give you all my opinions. Come in close, sister friend. I like this palette. I like it, I like it, I like it. I really, really like the formula. I really, really, really do. I just don't know if I can get past the price. Just saying. I am still very concerned about how expensive Ensley Rain palettes are. This is the cheapest one that they have, to my knowledge. Wait, let me double check that and make sure that I'm not fooling y'all. There's one other palette that's cheaper than this, and it's the Cosmic Dreamer palette, which I don't know if this was discontinued, but it's not available for sale right now. But that one's $56. So the thing that confuses me about the brand is how odd the pricing is. So this palette is $69. Cold Moon is $72.22. Lands of Enchantment is $88.88. Harvest Moon is another $88 palette. There's a pastel palette, which looks like it's a different formula. That's $29. So the pricing is a little bit all over the place for the brand. So it's just very confusing to understand where it's at. But in terms of the new, I think, sort of direction that the brand is going in, this, I think, is the cheapest one. Because this is what I would compare to like Harvest Moon and Cold Moon palettes. So at this price point, I'm comfortable at the $69 price point, but everything higher than that, I have a very, very hard time wrapping my head around. Because in addition to the palette being pretty expensive, I didn't talk about this in the price section, but I want to flag that the shipping for this is also like $15, which is what I pay to have things shipped from the UK. So like Cosmic Brushes, their shipping is about $15, $13 to $15 as well. Is Lisa free? I'm not even sure. But like the shipping is pretty expensive. So when you take a $69 palette and then you add $15 for shipping, then you add tax, and then you have to add the insurance, because I definitely recommend you get the insurance on top of it. It is not a cheap palette. You're looking at close to $100 for one eyeshadow palette. And that is where I start getting concerned. That is where I start feeling like, is this really worth it? Will I continue buying from Ensley Rain? On a sale? Sure. But I don't think that I could get myself over the hump of what this palette costs and what their palettes typically do cost to buy from them consistently. Now, that is a me thing. If you think that it's worth the price, if you can stomach what their products cost, and if you can afford it, I think that this is great. Like, I really do love the performance and the quality of this. And quite frankly, I know that every time they release something now, I'm going to be looking at it like, can I move some things around? If I don't buy this, can I get that? So it's a weird place for me to be in. And that's why I wanted to take some time and like just provide like hard facts before giving you guys my feelings. Because I'm usually very like yes or no for me, or like 100% yes. And this one, I'm like hemming and hawing and like seesawing on it because of the fact that I absolutely love the formula and the performance of this, but I'm absolutely not comfortable with the price, because even though I think the quality is great, I don't think that the price matches the quality, if that makes sense. And that's weird, because like when you really do look at it as at a like per shadow price perspective, it works out perfectly. But then when you consider the fact that this is cardboard packaging with like AI and no mirror, it's kind of like, but wait, something's missing. Where I would love to see the brand go, to be quite frank, is to make smaller palettes at a cheaper price point. I don't think we need 21 pan eyeshadow palettes, 9 pans, 15 pans. I think those would be great options for the brand to consider, because one, it would help bring their price point down. And two, it would make it more travel friendly. Like, this is a big palette. Like, I'm not traveling with this. Like, it's very, very hard to like travel with it. So I think in a way to appeal to more customers, help people stomach the price point, a smaller palette option might be a good way for the brand to go. But this ain't my company, none of that. I'm just giving you all my opinions. Okay, I know that this ending was really, really long, but I wanted to be very clear and upfront about everything. I will continue to play in this palette because, quite frankly, I really want to. So if you want to see me do more with this, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Also, I really want to know from you guys, do you think that this is worth it? Have you tried Ensley Rain? Like, what are your thoughts overall across the 3 Ps? You know, the price, packaging, performance. I really want to hear from others, because I'm still kind of like struggling with this internally, and you guys are just great. So it's great to hear other perspectives to help me come to a better conclusion. So leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And that's it for today's video, you guys. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out. Join the fam. It's a vibe over here. As always, I appreciate you guys so much more than you know. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. And I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.